Washington, D.C. or California or New York or someplace like that, pretty much everything in Ohio is affordable. But for people that live there, your income's based on Ohio, not in D.C. So, we all have our different challenges around the country, and we have a lot of federal policies. So, Mr. Holtz-Egan, I kind of want to explore some of the conversation that you've had about, the Federal Reserve has engaged in, activities that have distorted the market. First and foremost, in 2020, they did provide essential stability in March and April when, our markets were in free fall. We can only have a functioning market if there's eventually a buy side. There was no buy side. So they intervened, they created some stability, they did some heroic stuff. Then almost right after that, they started doing truly market distorting stuff. One of the worst things related to this hearing, they were buying for months and months and months, $40 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities and holding rates really low. So that created an asset bubble, potentially. And you've emphasized that they need to cool off demand. So people are going to need to live somewhere. So when you talk about demand, is it somehow people stop demanding a house? How does that play out for the average family in Western Ohio when you've got the Federal Reserve setting a price, now rates start going up? When you say cooling demand, how does that play out?
Call Sarah Mitchell.
So sorry, I got distracted. First of all, I think it's a very good point that the Fed did a tremendous job in 2020 of stepping in and providing enormous amounts of liquidity and having financial markets stabilize fast. We don't think of 2020 as a year of a banking crisis or a financial crisis. We had the pandemic and lots of problems.
Hello, Sarah. How you doing?
Mr. Larson, could you please mute your mic?
Okay, I'm doing pretty good. It's in committee meeting, but hey, that's part of
Someone please mute his mic for him.
What's going on? I apologize.
So
thank you.
So they did a great job, but as part of that, they made a decision to buy the $30 billion a month of MBS, which is a clear subsidy to the mortgage market without great discussion. And now that they're taking it back in an even greater amount, it's having an enormous impact on housing markets. So their very blunt tools, raise rates across the economy, every class of credit, every maturity, and pulling back on this liquidity are having a disproportionate impact on housing at a time when people need housing. And so that's to me says, number one, the Fed doesn't have fine tools that can target different sectors. It doesn't. And number two, don't get yourself in a position where you have to fight inflation like this. Once you do, you have nothing but bad choices. You need to slow down the labor market. That means fewer jobs. You need to slow down retail sales, fewer sales. None of that's good news. And that's the position we now find ourselves in.
Yeah, so people sometimes say, don't fight the Fed, right? The Fed is moving things one way or the other. When you think about households, they have to find a place to live. Rates are going up, so fundamentally that means what? They're not going to buy. That means somehow rents aren't going to go up. I mean, the people that own the property, they're going to have rents move where rates move, right, or where inflation moves. I guess, can you highlight the dangers of kind of this overzealous activity that the Federal Reserve has gotten themselves in, because it really does limit their options without affecting the average American, doesn't it?
So I think the activities they're in are attributed to the earlier policy errors. There's no question they were excessively loose, and now they're trying to take it back as fast as possible. It's having, as I said, a really bad impact on the housing market, much stronger than, for example, the labor market, which continues to produce 100,000 jobs a month. It'll show up in building, and so home builders are clearly looking at a poor outlook. As a result, we'll have fewer single-family homes, and the rental market will become much more heavily contested, and rents are going to go up, and I think that's where the rubber hits the road. And it's going to be a tough housing market for the foreseeable future.
Right. So I just think there's a lot of consequences for the Fed's actions, and they can't take it back. They might feel bad. They don't really express it very well if they do, but there are big consequences for this. And I think the last thing I'd say, the reaction to say, well, let's subsidize all of it. Well, what does that do? It increases government spending, and it pushes the Fed to print more money, which drives more inflation, which is how we have the problem we have today. So we should be careful about our own policy tools here in Congress. My time's expired and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.